hiring is purely a sales and marketing activity, especially in this post-COVID, great resignation, full, 3.6% unemployment rate environment.
They're always focused on their customer. Like, how do I bring a customer in? How do I find that next customer? And the marketing function, and even when you're kind of in the conversation with someone to try to bring them on board, you're selling them on the company, right? So it's like, How do you get that information out there? How do you talk about what the business does? How do you make someone want to work for the company? On today's edition of The Claw, I talk with Fletcher Wimbush with The Hire Talent, and we talk about the 2 questions that you need to make sure you ask during the interview process to put the right marketing talent in place. So be sure to listen in to The Claw and find out what those questions are. Welcome to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist at Liger Partners. I am joined today by Fletcher Wimbush. He is with The Hire Talent, and I didn't make any of that up. That is how cool his name is and the name of his company. So thanks so much for joining us this afternoon, Fletcher.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Eric.
So tell us a little bit about what The Hire Talent does.
Yeah, we are talent acquisition and talent assessment people. I was just telling this story to a member of the Kansas City Royals, literally right before this call, and so that was kind of funny. He was really drilling me on the history of our company and what we're all about, and I had to go all the way back to my father was an executive coach and created these talent assessments, and I was a football player and a captain of the team, a student body president, and I found myself in all these leadership roles and ingrained in this thought that if you get the right people on the bus, that you'll be successful ultimately. And born out of that is a talent acquisition, talent assessment platform, and sort of consulting business to help people get the most out of that.
Okay, nice. Okay, and so what the heck does that have to do with marketing? Like, how are those things tied together?
Yeah.
What do you see out in your space when you're working with companies?
I don't think people understand how closely related these things are. Hiring is purely a sales and marketing activity, especially in this post-COVID, great resignation, full, 3.6% unemployment rate environment, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
People aren't just going to knock down your door for a job anymore.
So we talk with clients who are, we were mentioning and talking a little bit about this before the show of, they're always focused on their customer. Like, how do I bring a customer in? How do I find that next customer? And the marketing function, and even when you're kind of in the conversation with someone to try to bring them on board, you're selling them on the company, right? So it's like, How do you get that information out there? How do you talk about what the business does? How do you make someone want to work for the company? Because surprisingly, I think employees probably look up your company before they do the interview. At least they should, right?
And it's either really boring or hopefully if you've, thought about this differently and think about it as a sales marketing activity, it's really exciting, right?
Right. Yeah. And so so talk to me about when companies come to you. So like, what's the reason that they've decided to engage you to help them out?
They're stuck, right? They're failing. They've most often they come to us because they've had a string of recent poor hires. Probably the most common thing I hear from business owners, they come to us and they say, I thought I was really good at this, but I've realized my last 3 or 4 hires have been either underwhelming or complete dumpster fires.
Okay. How about an underwhelming dumpster fire? How about that?
No, you can't have an underwhelming dumpster fire. That is always spectacular.
Always spectacular. Yes. Yeah. And so in that sort of realization that they come to, thinking about the fact that they've maybe brought in the wrong person, so what are some of the things that you're looking at that help them assess that in a much better way?
Yeah. Well, I think, you nailed it just a few moments ago. You were talking about everybody wants to connect with their client. They want to be able to identify. And so the first thing a marketer would tell you, I think, maybe correct, you're the marketer, they would tell you, well, who's your ideal client, right? And you would say, slow down, like you want to start posting this stuff on Facebook and Google ads and doing all these things. These are all tactics, I believe, right?
Yeah.
But if that's not pointed in the right direction, then it's just a waste of everybody's time and energy. So the first thing I start to ask people about is, first of all, I start asking about like, well, what is it you want to ask people to do?
Yeah.
And you'd be shocked in the garbage that you get back.
Huh.
Sometimes I get people who are like, well, I went to Indeed and I found a job description from my competitor and I grabbed that. And honestly, I bet you most of us are guilty of that.
Never. I've never done
some
that.
point in our careers as leaders, we did that, and so, and it's just the thing that nobody wants to do. It's just like in marketing, right? Like, do I really want to spend 2 months, doing, customer interviews and client interviews and really, really thinking carefully about who my ideal customer is and what their problem is and what their pain point is? I don't think most of us, when we think about marketing, get all excited about doing that part of the job. Right?
No. They typically skip that part. They just want to start putting things out. Yeah.
Throw some ads up there, right?
Yeah. Spray and pray is what I call it. Let's spray and pray a little bit and see what happens.
Well, it's exciting because maybe something comes in, but when we spend a bunch of money and nothing happens, then it's really frustrating, right?
Well, what's interesting what you're talking about is, we'll run into problems with companies where we ask them, who is your customer? And they, everybody could buy something from us, which we're like, is not true at all.
Yeah.
But when you think about employees or hiring someone, I'd be hopeful that a company would be like, not just anyone could work at our company. You think that would be a place that you think they'd be a little bit more discerning about what they're looking for.
They do generally have like some vague idea of like who they want to hire, right? Maybe it's a skill set. I need to find an SEO expert. I want them to be a good team player. I don't know. They need to have a 4-year university degree. I mean, they might throw some criteria out that they're sort of floating around in their head, right? They haven't done anything to validate it, first of all, right? Yeah. And again, that kind of goes back to the foundation, right? Just like in marketing, just like in hiring, you got to get that foundation right. And that's where, again, we skip the steps. We got to really dissect, like, what specifically in measurable terms, what is the desired outcome of somebody doing this job? I always think about smart terms. You guys probably use something like that in marketing, smart goals, smart terms. So it's got to be specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, time bound, right? So, as my SEO expert, I want to see you grow our traffic from 4,000 visitors a month to 10,000 over the next 12 months. And let's be more specific. I want them to be, say, small business owners who are in professional services, and that's probably still not even specific enough for marketing.
No, but it's better than just traffic. So yes, that's smart. Because people are like, we want traffic. I'm like, I can get you traffic. You want some traffic, but yeah.
But that would be the job description.
Right. Yep.
Right. And then I might say, well, what are the leading indicators for that? Right. Like create a world-class content. And again, that sometimes things are hard to get specific about, but like, okay, but maybe I can define that better. Like, what do I mean by world-class content? Right. Yeah. And there's probably, all these other things, I mean, a little bit about marketing, but I'm not, not by far not an expert. I'm so, yeah, it's terrible, but you get more and more granular, and that is now your job description is super focused, and then that dictates who your ideal candidate is.
Okay, so is job description, is that the starting point? Is job description the starting point for you?
Technically, it's job analysis.
So it's the
same thing you do when you go and you interview customers or like suspect target buyers, right? So that's the same thing you're doing. You're interviewing, like, what is your pain point? What do you want? What are you looking for? How did this product work or not work for you, right? Well, I would go to the person doing it, or maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the one doing that job, but I'd go to myself and I'd say, what did I do? How did I do it? What skills did I use?
Well, you might get committed for that if you come and ask yourself those questions, but you can try it. It works. But So talk to me about the company that's hiring for a position that maybe they don't have anyone internal that does that work. So they've identified it as a gap. They're just like, hey, we do this thing. We thought it might fit in this category, but it really doesn't. So how do I because that is when you're most apt to go to Indeed and steal a job description. Like, hey,
Yeah,
we need a
yeah.
person and we think they do this thing, so I'm just going to go steal one from somewhere. So how do I think about that if it's a gap for the company?
It's hard, right? Because I don't have any firsthand experience. It's not like I have a recipe already in place that's proven to go over and over again, right? But it's that same thing. No, that's what I mean by, like, I go to myself and say, well, I'm wearing that hat and I'm doing these things and I need to, like, not do these things, or it's a gap, or I need to do them better. So I start to, you would go to, well, who is doing this job in our company, and what are the gaps? What are missing? So then I identify, hopefully be as specific as I can about those gaps. But usually in those cases, in those situations, then it is part of the job description that the person coming in will define it.
Okay. So you make it their job. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And part of the hiring process, frankly, it'd be like, hey, this is our gaps. Like, what do you think? And it's definitely harder. I mean, you're having to use some common sense. Hopefully, maybe you have some partners, maybe you have a marketing agency you're working with, right? And just use your guys' terms here that could maybe guide or help, flush it out, right?
So a friendly
So
that you can talk to who has a person like that.
Business partners and things. I'm an EO guy, if you guys are EO friendly, but I go to my board of advisors, my forum, right? And I'd ask them, well, this is what I'm trying to do. Like, so I do my best, and sometimes, your best is not good enough, but it is better, because at least at minimum, then I will learn through this experience, even if I get the wrong person, because again, they write the job description for me.
Okay.
Hopefully, as they get on.
All right. Well, that makes sense. So we'll take a commercial break and come back. So we're going to talk a little bit. So we've kind of talked about the first step being kind of job analysis, not a little bit stronger than a job description. So what does the job do? What's the SMART goal for it? Or the SMART, what did you say? You didn't say SMART goal. You said SMART metrics?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, SMART outcomes.
SMART outcomes.
I think.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, cool. So we're going to go to a commercial break, and we'll be back in just a second. You're listening to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist at Liger Partners. We're talking today about how to find that next best hire.
Thanks so much for watching the Claw podcast. We'll be back after this short break.
When I first met the Unicorn Marketing Agency, everything was rainbows and, well, unicorns. They promised overnight marketing results for my business, leads my sales team couldn't keep up with. Once I signed up with them, they didn't even hold up any of their promises, even after months. And the only thing they gave me were excuses. After a while, communication with them became spotty and they were hard to get a hold of. Eventually, they stopped responding altogether. Overall, I lost a total of about $23,000 over a 4-month period. And I lost a lot of valuable time and energy.
And we're back. You're listening to The Claw, brought to you by Liger Partners. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist. I'm talking today with Fletcher Wimbush, and we're talking about the hiring process. So how do you find that right talent? That's not a challenge at all nowadays, is it?
No. The bane of most of our existence, yeah.
Yeah. And so we talked about doing sort of a job analysis to help get to what the job is, what that looks like. So now that I have that, can I post on Indeed? Am I allowed to post on Indeed now, or are there some other steps?
Well, if you put that boring job description on Indeed, I don't know how far that's really going to get you, right? So that's foundation is the first step. Attraction is the second step in the hiring process here. And then eventually candidate evaluation, training, and onboarding, just the 4 phases there. But attraction, so now I need to transform that job description into something that's going to resonate with my ideal candidate, the person who has a kind of a proven track record, the set of skills, abilities, experiences, aptitudes, behaviors, and I need to write a message to them, a personal note, like a love letter to them, hopefully. Right?
So it's almost the reverse of a cover letter. Like the whole cover. Some people, my team's probably like, cover letter. What's a cover letter? But cover letters, right? Like, who do I want to bring in? What do I want them to think or know about the business?
Yeah, exactly, right. And like you would to your customer, right? Or your prospective customer, right? So you want to do your best to just to articulate that in human terms. That's why I like love letter is kind of a good way of thinking about it, because it's not just this boring like we are a marketing company, we help make our company clients make a bunch of money. Like, how do you make that human, right? Like, how do you make that real? Like, we help transform our clients' lives from being, working in their business to on their business. I don't know, something that gets them excited to gives people a reason and how they're really affecting others, right? And telling that, and I like to tell it in a story. I have like 5-paragraph story when I run job ads. I get 1,000 applicants for a $15 an hour job.
Because you're telling them the mission, like they understand the mission.
Yeah. Telling the story, and I'm describing the job too, because applicants want to understand, but they want to understand like the day in the life, not the real day in the life, not a list of job responsibilities and duties. There's got to be some context to that. So you sort of tell the story of what it's like to do this job, right, day in and day out, right?
Yeah. Get them to imagine themselves in it, like that's what you want your customers. Like, it's aspirational. At the end of the day, marketing is about assisting someone to aspire to another plateau, another place. It's the reason we buy cars and stuff, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that end goal, right? Like, what will my life be like afterwards is really important. I think about there's 3 C's in hiring. It's career growth, it's culture, and it's compensation, and those things all help dictate my quality of life in doing that job, because we spend most of our time at work. So the culture is super important. And we're all human beings, and we all strive to grow. I mean, I don't really know any human being that doesn't. Like, if you're doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, you eventually get bored, period. Right. Like, how do I stretch my skill sets? And so growth doesn't have to be just in like, oh, I got a bigger title. It's just like, oh, I get to learn and do new things, and there's a path, and the company cares about investing in me and these kinds of things. There's lots of different ways to grow your career, right? But that would be one example. And then compensation, like, frankly, I mean, inflation's through the roof. Cost of living has been going through the roof for ages. We all need to be able to take care of our families, right? So that needs to be appropriate, in that scenario.
Yeah. And so it sounds like then that letter would cover those topics in some kind of interesting way that isn't just what everybody else puts up there. Another reason not to just go copy and paste what your competitor has done. Yeah.
So I love video testimonials, simply asking those questions of your existing employees, right? Tell me about, how did you find this opportunity? What has it meant to you? How have you grown since you've been here? Describe the culture and what you like about it, right? And how has this enabled you to achieve the things that you wanted in your personal life?
Right. Okay. Very nice.
And so ask like those 3 kind of questions of your existing employees, have them tell that story, and put the video right in your job ad.
Got it. Okay. So we've got really truly understand what the person is and what the job is, right? Beyond the job description, which seems, it's very interesting, because, products typically they just, list the features, like here's all this is how horsepower the car has or whatever. And I really want to know, how fast can I go? Right? Like things like that. And so kind of getting
or
to
how
that.
am I going to feel driving that car?
Right. Exactly. And then having kind of that love story so it's very much sales and marketing. It's kind of just twisting it around and what your product is that you're either trying to attract, and then how you're going to position that. So, So then how far do you guys get into okay, now I found a candidate. So I've got one of those 1,000 people who actually applied. How the heck do I weed through them and knows who the right fit's going to be?
Yeah. Well, ideally, you've done the first 2 steps relatively well, right? So, having a really clear, smart job description based on smart outcomes, right, should give me a lot of clarity on what I'm looking for in somebody, right? And then it's also given me a lot of clarity on how to position my opportunity to the right person. So hopefully, a couple of good people come in. You'll get lots of bad ones. And so also pet peeve of mine is like, oh, I got 100 candidates and they're all terrible. It's like, stop worrying about that. Just worry about like the 3 good ones you got, right?
There's a little bit of fishing. So you're looking for like the right things to come into the net. And it's better than getting nothing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, you're going to have to weed through some of that, Um, so then you can begin that candidate evaluation phase here, right? So at that point, you bring them into the first interview, and the first interview is a meet and greet. It's two-sided, so it's the client, or it's you telling that story. This is the sales part coming in, so you're going to now tell the story again, right? So I was just trained in storytelling, and so I might share the vision of the company in a story format. Like, here's how we came to be, and how we help our customers in this kind of outcome, and this is how we make them feel. Is that what kind of questions you have, and answers to that, and then from there it's now I've got them fully engaged. They're going to open up, and now I can begin to ask questions about these folks. And there's a lot of things we need to do, but there are two interview questions that are going to tell you almost everything you need to know. And one is, and the first one I ask in almost the first 5 to 10 minutes of any interview is, in that role, after we've kind of got context, who is your supervisor? And would that person hop on the phone with me and spend some 5 or 10 minutes talking about the time you guys spent working together? It's a yes or no question.
Yep.
No, we explore it. Yes, we explore it even more. What should I expect them to say about you? Right. And what did your mother teach you when you were a kid? You have nothing nice to say?
Right. Yeah. So if you have nothing nice to say about others, you're not going to say, yeah.
Don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
So if I go through your last 4 jobs and none of those previous supervisors are eagerly willing to jump on the phone and tell me how great you were, what do I now know about you?
Mm-hmm. Yep. There might be a problem.
There's something not good going on, right? It might be an attitude problem or a behavioral problem, or it might be a competency, and hope it's not both.
Okay, so that's one, right? So then what's the other?
Yeah.
What's the other question?
Significant achievements.
Okay.
And so this is great, especially when you have more like say an SEO specialist. So it's pretty specific, technical. Like you're really looking for some specific skill sets here, right? Tell me about your most significant achievement. If you start droning on about how you run PPC campaigns, like, okay, well, then must not be an SEO expert, right?
Yeah.
Or you go on about how you increase some website from 10,000 a month to 100 visitors a month. Now we can have a conversation about that.
Yeah.
Tell me how you did that.
Got it.
Who, why, what, when, and how. So the art is in the follow-up. And that, in fact, you use that technique with any interview question you ask. Who, why, what, when, and how, right? Just like you would in sales.
Yes, sales. Or, in market research, you ask the question why 5 times.
Yeah.
So I want to know why you sound like a 5-year-old, right? Like, why?
Tell me more.
Why? Until you get to the root reason of what's behind that. So
if you practice it 10,000 times, like, well, you don't have to practice it 10,000 times like I have, but, you do it 5 or 10 times, you're going to get pretty good at this. And ask why was that important? Tell me more. Who else was involved? How did you do it? When did this happen? That's important because, it might have been like 30 years ago, like now no longer relevant.
Right. You used to know how to do stuff, but now you don't, right? So
yeah, exactly. Right. And that's good. Again, any interview question, you want to use those follow-up techniques, the 5 whys or the who, why, what, when, and hows, and the tell me mores, right? Just get into the nitty gritty. You want to really, and that's, again, the fact-driven hiring system is what we're talking about. Introduce it that way, but it's all about uncovering the facts, right? The reference question helps you uncover facts. The significant achievement question with the art of being curious, all those follow-up questions, which is a sales technique, actually, right? Or maybe a market research question, technique is how you uncover facts and the truth.
Very nice. Yeah. Well, there is a lot more parallelism between what you do and what we do in the sales and marketing space. But, at the end of the day, everything is sales and marketing. Yeah. You're selling somebody something. So,
are you guys Daniel Pink fans?
Yeah, absolutely. So
I saw him at EO's Global Leadership Conference this last weekend, and it was like I'm like starstruck. He actually made fun of me, but unfortunately didn't talk.
You can't just leave that there. You can't be like, he made fun of me and then move on. Like that's like
and and I was like famous. There's 1,000 entrepreneurs there, and people came up to me like the rest of the conference, like, "You're Fletcher." So
what did he do? You have to tell me the story.
I know. I got the cliffhanger, right? I got you. Yeah. So he was giving us a presentation on regret. He did all this research, and he asked a question that I thought he asked: how many people have regrets in their life, right? And what percentage of people have regrets in their life? And I was like bold and like shouted out the answer. I said 76. and I, in my lack of attention to detail, didn't listen to the question appropriately, which is also another art of interviewing and sales and marketing is listening. The question was actually, what percentage of time do people think about have regrets in their day? And so I shout out 76, and he retorted back, "So you spend every waking moment and then some regretting life."
He was like, "You might need to see a psychiatrist."
Yeah,
so, right.
Exactly. That's like the guy I love, and like, you know, totally nailed me.
Oh, that's funny. Well, it does make you memorable. That is, the thing. That's what we say too about brand, right? Like, hey, at least you made me remember, right? So
yeah, at least I was memorable.
But you've got a memorable enough name. Like, you should have just used that, right? There you go. So, right.
Yeah, exactly. I was infamous, but that's good, I guess.
Yeah. Well, very nice. Well, thanks so much for joining me today to talk about this, because this is a really important topic right now. Specifically, like marketing, they think of marketing as like a one role thing, and there's 16 to 17 different types of positions you can hire in the marketing department, and very complex, and making sure you put together a good patchwork quilt of what those people look like.
That job analysis, job description, because I see that all the time. Yeah.
Well, very nice. Thanks for listening to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzcott, Chief Strategist with Liger Partners. I've been talking today with Fletcher Wimbush. He is with The Higher Talent. If you want more information about him or his company, you can find it in our show notes. And until next time.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Claw Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe, rate and review this podcast. And if you or someone you know wants to make an appearance on this show, email us at yourbestie@ligerpartners.com.